Hello snowboarders of the internet, I'm your host Avran LeFeber, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Bataleon Goliath Plus. It got a new shape for this year. This board features Bataleon's medium camber with 3BT and sidekick technology. So medium camber is just a middle of the road traditional camber. So from contact point to contact point, you have that arc of traditional camber. That's going to give you all the load, pop, snap, and drive out of this board. Now, the 3BT and the sidekick is exclusive to Bataleon and Lobster, and what you actually get is a 3D scooping in the nose and the tail. So the 3BT bevels up the contact points so that way they aren't as catchy, and then sidekick actually scoops up the tip a little bit more just to kind of give it a little bit better powder float, buttering, it's not going to catch on you. Does help with turn initiation, but it moves the drive from the contact point closer underfoot, so you do a little bit more ankle steering. This board is available in 156, 158 wide, 159, 161 wide, 164 wide. I rode this board at Copper Mountain on a day that was mostly blue skies. There were some clouds hanging around, average temps, high winds at the top of the mountain, couple of inches of light blower pow, some leftover choppy pow, some chop chunder, perfect corduroy, and I rode it with my Rome Black Label bindings and my K2 Thraxis boots. So the overall flex of this board comes in just past middle of the road. It's the plus line, a little bit more carbon in there, that's to be expected. As it is a directional twin, you get an ever so slightly softer nose, and then it just stiffens up and stays consistent all the way back to the tail. The torsional flex is noticeable, but with that carbon and stuff, it rebounds relatively quickly, so it's not the most playful there. When it comes to stability on Groomers, it's totally fine. You might get a little bit of vibration, and even in mellow, choppy terrain, it just cuts through everything. It's when you get into the more rutted out stuff that it starts to do some body jarring and you really start to feel it. It's one of those boards that if you take a hard hit, you're gonna feel it. It just goes right back up. But when you're cruising around on a Groomer, there's really relatively no nose flap, and you never feel that coming back underfoot. That mellow camber is easy to engage. You basically have no effort when you load it up, and when you roll back on the tail, this board springs. It wants to get in the air. You're gonna ollie over that family of fat skiers off that cat track gap. You're gonna boost that side hit. You don't have to worry about it. When it comes to jumps, small, medium, large, it doesn't care. It's gonna make everything boost a little bit further. So those small jumps become little launch ramps on the street, and the big jumps become mega booters of doom. Basically, if you're laid back, you let the lip throw you, you're gonna have no problem getting in the air. But if you load it up and pop, you're gonna boost even further and higher. Here's where we gotta talk about butterability and jibbing. So you have 3BT and sidekick in the tip and the tail. That scoops it out and it elevates that contact point, so you don't have to worry about that hooking as much. Now, with that said, the nose is slightly easier to butter than the tail, and I mean ever so slightly. You can get your weight out on it, get sideways, really push into it, but there is gonna be some fight from the carbon in this board, so expect it to rebound. Little speed goes a long way. You don't have to manhandle it, but a little speed will help you. And when it comes to jibbing, this board will wanna set down when you do a nose or tail press, so put a little more effort into it just to balance it, and you wanna ideally be in the midsection of the nose or the tail, just because that's where the flat section is. If you're more on the toe or heel edge, you tend to get like a little bit of a crooked press. Now when you go sideways, there's just enough give in this board coupled with that camber profile that it sets down and it just caresses slightly around the feature. It's not enough that you're like, oh, it's gonna clap out, and it's not so stiff that you're doing a balance board act on it. It locks in and holds, and when you are on your nose or tail, expect to get some pop out of the end of the feature as well. When it comes to carving, the edge-to-edge power transmission is smooth and fluid. It's not aggressive, it's not overwhelming, it's just smooth and fluid. You're rolling from toe to heel, and a lot of that is due to that 3BT in there. It does move the edge bite from the nose and the tail closer underfoot, so you do a lot more ankle steering. If you're really good with ankle steering, you're not gonna have a problem with this. If you're one of those guys that's either back foot dominant or front foot heavy and doesn't understand how to transition your weight, you're gonna have some issues with it. Now, when this board is on edge, it feels locked in. You can just apex this board by flexing your knee into the center and driving it off the tail to get it to slingshot you out of a turn. When you lay it over, you can lay it over. Short, tight, quick carves, medium, mellow carves, it's got you covered with everything in between. you don't really have to worry about it. This board will let you carve if you know what you're doing. Who's this board for? The hard-charging, all-mountain freestyle guy. So I won't lie, I'm pretty sure I'm just a regular Goliath type of guy. This was a little bit beefier than I would have wanted for an everyday ride. The snap is amazing. I really enjoyed that. This thing actually pops really well. I do feel that it's gotten a little softer than it was in the past years. It's just a little easier to engage out in the tips. Not much, but it was noticeable, which does make it a little bit more approachable. The edge-to-edge power transmission is great. Like I said, it's smooth and fluid. This was a board you could just sit on the edge and just arc from one side of the run back to the other with. Overall, very pleased with it. Actually rode it on some firmer, icier snow and didn't have the edges kick out on me, which tells me that they have perfected their side cuts a little bit better, so the edge grip is a little more strong with it. Comparable boards, the Capita Mega Merc, the Jones Ultra Mountain Twin, the Ride Algorithm. Binding recommendations, the Bataleon Astro ASIM, the Nitro Team Pro, the Ride C8. This has been my review of the Bataleon Goliath Plus. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you own one? Are you gonna buy one? Leave me a comment down below. Let's have a conversation about this snowboard. If you're new here, remember to subscribe, click the bell, get those notifications. That way you're not missing any of the videos we got coming out for all you snowboarders of the internet. And if you really like what we're doing over here and you wanna support us further, swing on over to Angry Snowboarder VIP and become a member. Sure, I could tell you more here, but I got a video over there that explains it so much better. As always, I've been your host, Avran LeFeber, and I'll see you in another video.